We're still inside of our contribute form component, specifically inside the onSubmit event handler. Eventually, we're going to add a function call to this thing to make sure that we call the contribute function on our campaign instance in order to send in some amount of money. Now, there's one thing to keep in mind here. At any time, we might have many different campaigns active. So whenever someone is contributing some money through the contribute form, we need to make sure that we specify exactly which campaign this person is attempting to donate money to. Right now, our campaign show component knows exactly what address the user is looking at on the screen, right? The address is in the URL, and we've already taken that address from the URL and gotten access to it inside of campaign show. And that's where we created our instance of a campaign and started pulling information off of it. So we now need to contribute that, or communicate that address down to our contribute form. So that the contribute form knows exactly which campaign it's trying to donate some money to. So we're going to take the address from this thing and pass it as a prop down to the contribute form. So then the contribute form has the address. That's pretty much it. So let's go back to our campaign show component. We're going to get that address and make sure we communicate it down. Back inside my code editor, I'm going to find the campaigns show.js file. So here's my campaign show component. You'll recall that inside of the getInitialProps function, we have access to the address on this query object right here. We're going to take this address and we're going to add it to the object that gets returned from getInitialProps, so that on our props object inside of our actual component instance, we'll have access to this.props.address. So on this object, I'll add on address, and that's going to come from props.query.address. And then don't forget to get a comma after it. Just to be clear here, the reason we're going through this step right here is that getInitialProps is not a part of our actual component instance. So even though getInitialProps knows about the campaign address, the rest of the methods inside this thing, which actually belong to the component instance, don't know about the address. So that's why we have to specifically return the address on this object right here. Okay, so now down inside of our component at the render method, we'll find our contribute form. Here it is. We're going to tell that contribute form the active address, or the address of the campaign that we are currently looking at on the screen. And that's going to come from this.props.address. And again, we have access to this variable right here because we just added it to that object that gets returned from getInitialProps. All right, so let's save this. I'm then going to close this file and go back to the contribute form. So now contribute form has access to this.props.address, right? So we now have access to the address inside of here. So now the last thing we have to do is make use of that campaign.js file that we made just a little bit ago. Remember, we created this function inside of here, and we had said if you pass an address into this thing, you'll get a setup contract that is ready to go and work with your campaign. So we're now going to import this function into our contribute form, and we'll pass our address into this function and we'll get back our contract. So back inside of contribute form, at the top, I'm going to import campaign from up one directory. We're currently inside of components. So up one directory, we're going to go into Ethereum and then get that campaign file. Then inside of our onSubmit handler, we can say const campaign is capital campaign, and we'll pass in our address. All right, so now this is our actual contract instance, and it is definitely pointing at the correct address. Let's take a pause right here. We're going to come back to the next video, and we will be able to use this campaign instance to actually contribute some money over to our campaign. So quick break, and I'll see you in a minute.